Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is George Herrera with the Queens Home Team at Keller Williams Realty. Today I'm dropping another tip, and this tip today is catered more towards home buyers, specifically Queens home buyers. And what we're talking about today is home inspections, and probably my number one tip that I give to home buyers, friends, family, whenever they're looking to buy, especially if they're in Queens. This is usually the advice that I give them, so figured I'd share it and thought you might find it helpful. So what I usually tell people, especially here in Queens, if you're going to do an inspection, and this is more related to how you handle the inspection report once you get it, right? So here in Queens, we're listing agents, my wife and I. We list and sell over 50 properties a year, and so in our careers we've sold hundreds of properties, and so we deal with inspections, we deal with buyers getting their inspection report, and how they handle it a lot of times determines whether the deal moves forward or not. And we've encountered a lot of buyers who end up losing a good house and then later on they regret it. So the advice I usually tell people is that if you're buying a house, one of the things that you want to be to make sure of is that the price reflects the work needed. In other words, let's say you're buying a house and the house is in original condition. Okay, let's say in that neighborhood, the renovated houses, so completely brand new, all renovated with modern finishes. Let's say the houses are selling for $650 to $675. So let's say mid 600s is where they're going. And let's say you're buying a house and the house is listed at $550 or even $575, right? There's pretty much $100,000 discount that's already taken into account into the pricing. And so when you have a property like that, and that's how we price our properties too, then you don't want to play around too much, or you don't want to nitpick once you get your inspection report. You don't want to go too in depth with the things that you're asking for, discounts that you're requesting, credits, repairs, because a lot of that is already factored in. So one of the main tips of it that I can give is to make sure you know what the ARV is. So that's an investor term, after repair value. So you want to get a good idea, after I do the work that this property needs, what would it be worth? Okay, and then you want to just make sure that the price that you're paying, or the price that it's listed at, is actually taking into account all the work that it needs. Because if it does, once you get your inspection report, you really don't want to play too much hardball, because you very well could risk losing the house. Now, across the bridge over in New Jersey, we know that over there things are done a lot differently. So actually in New Jersey, it's very common for the seller of a property to actually do a lot of repairs before closing, and to either negotiate credits, discounts. It seems like over there, when you go get an accepted offer, you actually move forward into a preliminary contract, and so it's a lot more binding. The sellers in Jersey, from what we hear, is that it's very, very much more cooperative. Okay, and the reason why I think is because here in Queens, it is New York City, it is a high demand neighborhood, and we've been in New York City, we've been working here since 2008 and 2010. So over here, in all the years that we've worked here, it's always remained a very consistent high demand neighborhood, because we get a lot of spillover from Manhattan and from Brooklyn. So it's typically it's a very high demand neighborhood, and what that means is that usually buyers don't have a lot of leverage in negotiations, especially after they get their inspection. So we've seen a lot of buyers that ask for a lot of repairs, or their attorney might send over a laundry list of items to be repaired, or credits. Buyers who ask for too high of a discount, too much of a credit, and we've seen numerous times where buyers lose out because there's usually backup offers, or during that time that the buyer is trying to negotiate repairs and discounts, credits, another higher offer comes in. Or here in Queens, you even get buyers that make offers on houses with no inspection, waiving the inspection, higher down payments, all cash. So in Queens, there's no shortage of competition. It is a pretty competitive market. You know, if it turns into a buyer's market somewhere down the road, then that obviously changes things. But we started out in a buyer's market. We saw it turn into a seller's market, and we've even experienced it softening. But no matter what, Queens is a pretty high demand neighborhood. You can always pretty much guarantee that there are a lot of people looking at homes. And when a property's priced right, there's usually backup offers. There's usually a lot of interest in the property. So what I usually tell people is, if you really like the house and you do the inspection, if the price reflects the work needed, you can always ask for, let's say you get your inspection report, you can ask for a discount or a credit of $5,000. And I would say 9 times out of 10, you'll probably get it. So if you ask for a discount or a credit of $5,000 in lieu of whatever findings are in the report, most of the time any seller will most likely agree, just to keep the deal moving forward. Where we've seen a lot of buyers lose deals and lose out on houses is when they start asking for either discounts or credits in excess of $10,000. So let's say they're asking for $10, $15, $20,000. Usually that's going to kill a deal, and a lot of times, you know, that's happened to us, and we just back out of that one, and then we just get another better offer. And usually we're able to get a better offer with a more reasonable buyer. So you can always ask for 5, and most of the time you'll get a seller that will actually take it, and will be willing to give you that. But if you ask for 10, 15, 20, you know, when you start going into bigger numbers over 10,000, then there's a much higher risk of you actually losing the property, either to another buyer or just because sellers might just reject and cancel and go keep looking for another buyer. The other thing, so you can always ask for, let's say, the 5,000, and most of the time that will do something. Repairs in Queens are not very common. So here, and I think in Jersey, it's much more common, where you can ask for certain things to be repaired before closing that come up in the inspection report. But in Queens, repairs are not very common. I can tell you just from a lot of the properties that we sell, 95, probably 98% of them, the owners never do repairs. They just offer either a credit or a discount. So what you would want to do is request a credit or a discount for any work that's needed, but just be mindful of the amount, because once you go over a certain threshold, you do increase your chance of your risk of actually losing the house. And like I said, one of the best things you can do, and you can ask your agent this, is get an idea of the after repair value. So what will the property be worth after all of the renovations are done? And then you can get an idea of whether all that work is already reflected. And many times, if a listing agent priced the property right, then a lot of that work will be already factored in. And then you can even make some built-in equity. If you are able to do all the repairs on a lower budget, then you might actually be able to make some money going in, and that's the best case scenario for everybody. So for anybody. So really, the best tip I would say is, you know, when you're looking at a property, that's why you want to work with a buyer's agent, is because you want to be able to see comps, and recent comps will be able to show you what the property will be worth once it's renovated. And once you know that number, then now you can actually make sure that all of that is reflected. And if it is, when you get your inspection report, you know, if you really like the house, it's a really good house, nice layout, nice location, you don't want to mess around and risk losing it, because we've seen that too many times. So be reasonable. Remember, the seller's on the other side, you're on one side, and it always has to be a win-win agreement. So That's just a couple tips that I can give you. The after repair value to be mindful of, and then also whenever you request credits or discounts, you know, anything 5,000 or below is very likely that you would be able to get it, no problem. And then once you go over 5,000, 10,000, then just be aware that you increase your risk of actually losing the property. Okay, so hopefully you found that helpful. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop us a line. You can visit us out online at queenshometeam.com/help. I'll also leave a link in the description. And if you have any other questions that you want us to answer on our channel, please just drop them in the comments, and then we'd be happy to record a video to answer the questions for you. Thanks for tuning in today. Take care and happy holidays.